All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Parasite the Maxim, episode 4.
Mr. A has assaulted the school.
Yes, and he has made quick work of Shinichi's barrier.
Yep.
However, they're going to be fighting 2 as 1.
Right. Yes.
Which should give them an advantage, although
Hopefully.
Shinichi doesn't inspire much confidence as a protagonist.
He's not exactly, like, combat ready and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
But he does have a weapon. He does have a very sharp weppen. So,
he's got a pipe, Jacob. And we know about dense protagonists and their pipes, you know.
Oh, boy, it's so... I didn't think about that. But yeah. He's fighting with a pipe. And then Tamiya Ryoko is observing from far away to see how this goes.
Yeah, on some level, it shows that these parasites individually care about their own survival and not about the survival of their members of the species, basically.
Right, and
that Ryoko is basically saying, okay, Mr. A, you are not worth basically helping, but you're also not basically worth stopping. So that
I don't want to jeopardize my own position.
Exactly. So we have a fight on our hands. There are stakes involved because we are at the school. Yes. Shinichi's identity could be exposed.
Right.
And harm could come to some of the other students.
Yeah.
So it's a classic, we got to keep this away from my personal life kind of fight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Shinichi has to stop Mr. A right here, right now, with the help of Migi.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm all for it because when they do the animation on the fights, it's so fast and fluid that there's some cool things we can see.
Yes.
So y'all, without further ado, let's get into this.
Okay.
All right.
So,
I love the fast pacing of this show. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I like that this wasn't some long drawn out fight or what have you.
Right. The fight was resolved very quickly, and then it was more about the aftermath of the fight, and then also this new stuff that's going on with Shinichi and his parents.
Right.
And how they handle that, and Migi learning how to imitate guns and the like.
Right. And then Tamiya Ryoko basically saying, okay, I'm abandoning this identity because of my pregnancy being something that draws unwanted attention towards my new identity as Tamiya Ryoko. But Tamiya Ryoko. But the thing is that I find interesting is that on some level there was a social kind of disconnect that she was kind of threatened with in a lot of ways by this whole this whole teacher conference thing. Yeah. And then the whole thing about the directive that the Parasites received.
Yeah.
And that being kind of in some ways, their connection to something else.
Right.
But Tamiya basically presenting the idea that humans receive no such directive, which I would go in your camp with things with, no, that's with regards to your lack of perception with what can be considered a directive, i.e. a conscious message you received.
Right, because they definitely don't seem to get that. But
no, humans in general, just like when you were born, Jacob, did you receive a conscious directive? Like
that's classified.
But like, I think that if you take what humans are as a collective species, we do have subconscious directives that go at the simple base level of propagate the species, and we have urges and physical like needs for like hunger, thirst, all that. But there's this other aspect of humanity that Tamiya Ryoko encountered with how the mother was able to perceive something that, based on her literal definitions of perception, she shouldn't have been able to tell. And now we have the mother of Shinichi also having this slight little bit of a thing here, even though hers is, there's more obvious stuff to go on here.
Right, and in the case of Shinichi, it's more of a muted case because he still is Shinichi. He's just dealing with something that he wouldn't normally deal with, as opposed to...
So he's acting abnormally.
Right, but it's still him acting, as opposed to in the case of with Parasite, where it's a completely different person.
Right.
Yeah, which really makes it unfortunate for the parasites, because if they could even have like you would almost hope that you wanted someone that like posted to Facebook a lot or something like that, so they could try and extrapolate like, this was the general personality, like see if there's any like videos of them and be like, yes, okay, this is how I should act,
right? And I think you could get pretty far with that, but I still think there's this other aspect, and that is humans make kind of decisions based on, I would say, generally emotion. Like, generally speaking, we are emotional beings, so we decide how to do things, but that means even the way we speak, the way we move. Like you were saying, she wasn't emoting in a way that probably gave off some hint of, wait, you're just standing there, facing away from me. Your voice is so monotone.
Right.
What's going on here? And then she gave the turn around, I want to see your face, basically. And just one look at her face, and she was like, was off.
No, this right,
yeah,
and you might be able to play that off, with like some people of like, oh, you haven't seen me in years, or like, oh, I'm actually into hardcore drugs now.
Right, I've changed.
Right, exactly.
But the thing is that even that kind of that indignant response of I've changed would require an emote. It would require something about them that is, I would say, intrinsically human, because they mentioned here that Miggy is not capable of affection.
Right, and now granted, that was something that Shinichi was stating, so that doesn't necessarily mean that it's true.
Totally.
But from what we've seen thus far, that does seem to be the case.
Right, he doesn't understand empathy when it goes against utilitarianism.
Right. And it almost feels like that line in Inception where they're talking about like the mind can always track the genesis of an idea, and it almost feels like the same thing where even if you were to have someone that basically says I've changed, right, the person that knows them really well would still be able to track in some ways the genesis of them changing, right? There would be something of like
some residue of them left in that display.
Right. So that even if it's not the same person that they knew, in that sense. They'd be able to be like, there was a shift that happened as opposed to a complete break.
Right, like, you know how the whole phrase, the eyes are the windows or the gates to the soul, basically? When you look in someone's eyes and you see someone that is... Well, there's the joke in online culture, the dead inside kind of look. But I would say when there's the absolute nothing, that either means on some level, like, that person really needs some help. Like, mentally in some way,
but even
or that's just not
right. But even then, if you are, because the thing is that, like, in the case of, like, say, parents and children, right?
Sure,
it's something where you've spent so much time with them,
especially if your kid is an adult. Like,
right, exactly.
You watch them go and mature and change and grow up and
set
solidify
all the foundations of who they are and everything. So that even if they had that dead inside look, there would be a big difference between the dead inside look of they're not doing well, and the dead inside look of just absolute vacancy, come back another time.
Right. It would be the equivalent of if, for some reason, your kids swapped personalities.
Sure.
Because it wouldn't be that you would be sending out just nothing. You would be sending out nothing that resembles your daughter, and something that resembles something that you're not familiar with.
And let's be real, as incredible at picking up on things as humans are, especially with like the uncanny valley of just seeing where things don't match up to what we expect. There's a lot, like, humans aren't perfect, so like the fact that it's been this long, totally makes sense. But eventually, it's like, okay, no, I've been sniffing something for a while now that something's up,
for sure,
and now. Yeah, the confirmations are starting to come in.
Right, and what I like about this is something that is an intrinsic thing of humanity that Tamiya Ryoko doesn't understand. Meaning that there was something that the mother did, and she was like, she doesn't have some kind of special ability. Which I love the logical thought process here of like, okay, hold on. I studied humans.
Right.
And I have a really powerful intellect granted by my parasite brain, essentially. Okay, how did she do that? Because I understand that maybe I could have given myself away with something like that, but she did it so quickly that there's no way I made a mistake.
It's one of the things that I love about this is that in a way it basically shows how the parasites aren't as smart as they think they are. Because here's the thing. You could say that that it's just something that they don't understand. But if they are able to observe humans as effectively as they believe they can, then they would very quickly come to the conclusion that there's this thing that they don't fully understand that the humans do, and that is a foundational aspect of how they go about their daily life, right? How they function.
But I would say if you examine human beings from an impersonal perspective, it is almost impossible to gather that without experiential data.
Right, exactly.
So that's what that is what they're gathering right now.
Which is absolutely wonderful, because it goes to show that basically there is a need for an intermediary.
Yes.
Not just to broker a peace potentially between the two species, but also so that the parasites can fully integrate and come to understand, because without that they will end up like they won't be able to, right? They can do the whole mincemeat murders thing. They can keep going around because they're at the top of the food chain, and and all that, but there is something that they are not able to get. They're not able to fully assimilate the human identity.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would say that is what is going to be one of the big things they'll focus on with Shinichi and Migi.
Yeah,
when they were talking about Migi's limitations in these specific areas, I wanted to cry out. In fact, I did during the reaction of like, no, Shinichi, like, come on, there's so many things that you can teach Migi, and also in some ways via some kind of biological hoobity-ha, because you're connected physically and probably on some levels emotionally, mentally. Like if we are going to go into the whole what is the soul, like what is that
the soul exists in the right hand. No.
Right, what is that non-quantifiable aspect of humanity that the parasites will never get? And how close will they get up to that via maybe someone like Shinichi teaching Migi,
right?
Okay, so when humans feel fear, it's because it's a survival thing. But we feel a lot of other things too. And Shinichi be like, or Migi be like what? He'd be like, well, we feel love. And he'd be like, isn't that just a desire to procreate? It's like, well, that is part of it
too.
There's that part of it. But then he could show him like books from like old, Greek stuff, and be like, there are many different words for love. And he'd be like,
right.
So like,
love is the thing that breaks logic. He's like, oh, so that's why you do all those stupid things.
Right. He's like, so what is this idea of sacrifice? Like the idea of,
why would you do that?
Doesn't that hurt your ability to propagate the species, which was your primary directive or something like that? It's like, no.
And one of the things that they could do that would be really interesting here is that even if Migi is not able to directly generate emotions,
right, he could maybe mimic it.
He could mimic, and the thing is, as another show has taught us, if a fake is a good enough fake, is it basically the same as the real thing?
Yep.
And the thing is,
even more powerful,
potentially.
Yeah.
And if Migi gets to the point, maybe with some teaching from Shinichi, to understand emotions, even if it's simply like this causes this kind of a thing, because it'd be hard to learn about emotions in depth without actually experiencing them, firsthand.
Yeah.
But Migi's smart enough that with enough data, they could probably figure something out like that.
Right.
And then who knows? Maybe then it could be the same kind of thing. And the way that Migi could be potentially motivated to do that is that, hey, we'll be able to blend in better and integrate better as into society if this is something that you have in your belt as a tool, as a skill, because this is how humans communicate.
Yeah, and this show is definitely going to go post high school. With the way the OP is set up, with the way they have things being kind of done so fast paced, and the fact that he's in 12th grade, meaning that this is the final year in high school. Yeah. There's a lot of things where Shinichi will need to set off on his own. And I want to talk about that part of this really quickly. There are some clever storytelling things that I think they're subtly trying to set up, where this is obviously a coming-of-age story, but it's also, I would say, the pains of growing up and changing or maybe solidifying who you are. So here's what I mean by that. The mother, in this case, is that representation of the maternal safety, trying to keep the child in the same place they've been all the time, within the role of being the child. Well, when a child becomes an adult and matures, there's this casting off of the umbilical cord, basically.
Much like Migi separating themselves from Shinichi. Even though it was something that maybe was only able to be done for a short amount of time.
Right.
At the beginning, eventually it could get to the point where it's something that is semi-permanent.
Right.
Yeah.
But that requires experimentation. That requires little cuts in some ways. And that's painful. That's something that as a mother in this case, she's not going to enjoy that. And in a lot of ways, I think many of us who have, gone through the threshold of growing up into an adult, but going through kind of their teenage years, and when they were like testing the line, the connection between family and their, freedom, their I would say their independency, their independence side or what have you. There was some strain there. There was some stress there. But then once you've, achieved independency, like then you're, or achieved independence. Why do you keep trying to say independency? It's not a word. Because I'm thinking dependency. But achieved your independence. Then on some level, there's this more balanced side of things where you can reconnect with the parents, the one that had the umbilical cord on you. Right. And there's no...
As peers.
Peers, there's no attachment there that goes into like let me like do all these things for you. Now, now, on some level, maybe the parents, might still want to do that. But you have the freedom to just be like, I'm sorry, I appreciate your good things here. And I'll totally come over and have dinner with y'all. But like, I can't, I can't. Well, and I can't go back to the way things were.
Right. And if there is something where it's like, oh, they want to do something for you, well, you can also do those things for them as well.
Exactly.
And I love the way that they set up the parent dynamic, because you have the dad on the one hand who is a bit more clueless to what's going on, but at the same time, he's, got that calm sort of like, no, remember what
everything will work out okay.
Everything will work out okay. Remember what it was like, when you were his age.
Right.
The fact that he's keeping some secrets from us, I would expect nothing less. In fact, like ever since, potentially because of that whole, burn situation, he's kind of been too good of a boy, maybe, because he didn't want to,
to hurt you guys.
Exactly, right. And now he's actually willing to go and be his own person. That's good, right? That's something that should be encouraged, right?
Yeah, and then they have this trip that they're going on, which I'd say is the perfect experiment, basically, to let the growing adult have some independence.
Yeah.
Have some freedom to basically be whoever they want, do whatever they want. And while there will definitely be that point where they return, which I hope they return.
In one piece.
Haha. But there's a lot of cool things that I feel like they can do if they ever shift focus to having the parents being, gone from this whole setting and thinking back, so that when they return, they can have grown, they can have developed a little bit.
I kind of really hope that they end up surviving. And
me too.
Because that way I would love to see the dynamic, not just of Shinichi when he's older, but the dynamic between Shinichi and his parents when he's older.
Yes.
Because the whole thing of post high school,
Shinichi.
it's like, yes, fantastic.
Yep.
But I would love to see basically how, when things get crazier, because I'm sure they're going to. Yeah. Because that's something in my mind that would be much worse, is if his parents died when he was out of high school, when it was in a situation where we've kind of left the tropes behind, so that way it's not like an assumed thing that, oh yeah, his parents are totally gonna die. But they might just be dead. Like, they might have gotten in that taxi and he's never going to see them again.
Yeah, I mean, on some level, the way they showed Tamiya Ryoko looking out over the city, having this disconnect with the baby inside her moving, and then this whole thing of, like, my directive is to destroy this species. Yeah. Like, kill them all.
Yep.
So she's looking out over the city of, like, all right, this will be my bloodbath playground.
But again, it's interesting that she let Shinichi live, because now it could have been something where it was she wasn't sure that she would come out of it unscathed or something like that. But if she was fairly confident that she would have won, and Miggy was fairly confident she would have won, even if he's not a pure human in that sense, because I think that's what they were getting at here. There's still the idea that he is antagonistic towards her and knows her face. Well, no, she can change her face.
She can change her face, yeah.
But basically knows that she's out there, right? He is a potential threat.
Yeah, and she's maybe just passing the threat down the line.
Potentially.
But I also think on some level, she's got this intelligence regarding the way that Miggy is still a force that could change Shinichi.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that I've held back on theorizing on, because I want it to be more of a thing of where they just kind of meet each other in the middle ground constantly, and it more of kind of balances the two out. But there is the potential that Shinichi becomes less and less human. The things that he does, like, stabbing a person.
Well, the thing is, I would say that doesn't necessarily make him less and less human.
Well, obviously not literally.
No, right. Yeah. Well, and I'm really glad that they went into the whole idea of him being like, I helped kill someone today. Like, I stabbed them. I remember what that felt like. And even though, because of the pace that they've been taking with the show, it was mentioned and then gone past, pretty quickly.
Right.
They brought it up, which is very important. That would have been very jarring if he did that and wasn't like, oh, I did that. Like, that looked and felt like a human body. Like, there was the head up top, but the rest of it, yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, and the kind of trauma feeling memory of him being like, or I guess with left-handed. Yeah, I know what that felt like now.
And the fact that later in the episode he then suggested, like, so should we kill Tamiya Ryoko? Like, there was already this thing of like him getting acclimated to it. Right. Yeah.
And while I would say that he does have the how could you do this kind of thing, I must stop you so that you do not do the evil thing kind of aspect about him.
He's being a lot more ready to confront than he was with Mr. A, where even when Mr. A was literally just killing all kinds of people, he stopped and let Mr. A go. Yeah.
So yeah.
Also, that was just gross, but also awesome having the thing just be like this spigot of blood just
right, because the hole that stabbed him with was angled at such a way so it had a blade, basically a diagonal, but then that had a hole to where it was actually still stuck in the artery. The blood was being pumped through the pipe, which is like
and with enough pressure to pop off the plastic cap.
Wait.
The rubber cap, like, because it was a chair leg, right? And there's little.
Oh, I think it was already taken off.
No. They showed it. They showed it popping off. Because there's the rubber leg, or cap on the bottom of like chair legs, and then it actually popped out, and then the blood started flowing.
Okay, I just missed that. I guess.
Yeah. Like that somehow just made it even more real to me, because the idea is that the blood's still being pumped, so it still was able to build up the pressure necessary
weight as well,
in the pipe to boom.
Well, okay, we had our fight. We have kind of the next stage of story presented to us. It's basically Tamiya Ryoko, what are you gonna do? And also Shinichi and Migi, what are you guys gonna prep for now that you have the house to yourself?
And I'm also curious to see what they do with Murano, because there was that whole thing before where, he yelled at her and was like, stay here, don't come after me and all that stuff. And, kind of scared her a bit. It was for her own safety and whatnot. But since we didn't touch base with her afterwards, really,
right,
I'm curious to see what they'll do in the future.
Yeah, maybe it'll be an awkward thing where he'll go to school and she'll just be kind of like... kind of ignoring him just a little.
Well, and also the whole thing that they touched base on with the moms being able to tell that that their children were different. It also goes to show that the first time that happened, and very quickly also, my dad, was with Murano, with much less prompting than with the parents. So
that might be something where they're like, okay, that was a weird translation, but also just like the intent is the same. But it's also maybe saying how much Murano does observe Shinichi, or has observed him over the course of their school years together. Just a thought. But this has been an episode.
Quite a good one.
If you want to see the next episode's reaction right now, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access. You can chat with us about these stories, about anime in general. You can get involved with the Discord community events, which are starting up soon. You can also talk to Jake about his awesome book he just published.
That's right. My passion project, Sci-Fi Novel Battle Lines, is still available for order on Amazon. Link in the description below. Go check it out. It's a fun book.
So if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.